We are here today with Ron McLester. He is the Executive Director of Truth, Reconciliation, and Indigenization at Algonquin College. Algonquin is celebrating the grand opening and official naming of the new courtyard and Indigenous spaces at the college's Dare District. Ron, thank you so much for having us on campus today.
Oh, you're welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. I was wondering if we could get started by you telling us about the grand opening that's happening.
Sure. Well, we're very excited. Of course, we have had a multi-year project that included the construction of the Dare District. We had our grand opening for that on May 3rd earlier this year. And we have put a considerable amount of time, thinking, energy, and Indigenous knowledge into the Dare District proper. On Monday, December 10th, we will be opening the Indigenous Gathering Circle and sharing its Indigenous name along with a few other of the spaces. So we're excited to invite a number of community members from across the Ottawa region, including a few VIPs from local Indigenous territories.
And you had mentioned that you consulted with different Indigenous communities and leaders on this project. I was wondering if you could speak a little about that.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that we must do, at least here at Algonquin, and I would suggest anybody doing this type of work, is meaningful consultation with Indigenous communities. Nothing about us without us, I heard this morning on a podcast. And so when we started looking at how we embed Indigenous knowledge, identity, and placemaking within the institution, we started with community. So we had to reflect on who are our partners, how we've engaged with them in the past, and what makes sense going forward. And so in order to do that, we've spent many, many hours at Kitigan-Zibi, Pikwakanagan. We've had folks contribute from Akwesasne and Tyendinaga, a number of Métis folks. We've had some touch points with Inuit individuals. So we have, to some great degree, spent quite a bit of time ensuring that we have had meaningful engagement with community members. So that means knowledge carriers, elders, students, faculty members, internal and external folks, and I'm quite proud at the depth and breadth that we've invested as far as engagement.
And for those community members who will be here on campus to celebrate, what do you hope they see?
I hope that they see we've done this in a good way. Consensus does not mean, in my understanding, from a traditional perspective, that everybody agrees. But what it does mean is that everybody has a chance to have their voice heard. So I stand proud and can sleep at night knowing that we offered the opportunity for folks' voices to be heard. Now, there may and most likely will be things that people don't like. I'm okay with that because I'm confident that what we're doing is culturally safe. What I would like to see is for those community members, those elders, knowledge carriers, etc., that they feel in their mind, heart, and spirit that they were listened to, that we cared about their direction, and that we implemented something that is in a good way.
And what do you think the importance of having a space like this is, not just on this campus, but campuses across the country?
Indigenization is something that is a bit of a buzzword at the moment. So whether it's indigenization or decolonization or even a third word that I don't think we've yet to sort of develop, what's important about it is that this is not just for the self-ID'd Indigenous learners. This is for everybody. We all share the past, we're all sharing the present, and we certainly share the future. So how do we reflect on that past in a good way? How do we plan to have a better future? And the way we come together today is really important. And so this work is needed because it is literally for every member of the college community as well as folks from outside campus. So we will be able to explore the utility of Indigenous knowledge. We'll be able to apply that to 21st century thinking, and we'll be able to authenticate that with community members. I think that is incredibly important for this broad initiative, which is currently called Indigenization.
And you mentioned the support and the interaction of the full community. And I heard that it wasn't just the faculty here and the staff that are invested in this, but the students have invested in as well. Could you talk a bit about that?
Absolutely. We had a number of sessions. I know that we did, again, a number in community. Like I say, we went to Kitigan-Zibi and literally hosted an elders gathering. We went out to Pikwakanagan and had a community drop in. We had a session at the Wabano Center downtown. We had 2 of them here on campus, at least 2 of them, that were focused on students specifically, and then additional ones for faculty, employees, and students, and then a third one that was really just anybody and everybody that we might have missed doing the others. But specifically, the students were engaged because they're the primary recipients. The Student Association themselves made a huge investment in the courtyard to the tune of $1 million. But we had to make sure that our plans and our initiatives were heavily informed by, again, community, but also students, and what they feel is important to see in a post-secondary environment, and what they think is appropriate, and what they think would attract others. And so we made a concerted effort to do just that.
And you kindly gave us a tour of the space before we started this interview, and it's very innovative, it's very spacious. I was wondering if there are any key elements of the space that you wanted to talk about, or that you're kind of particularly excited to see come to life?
Well, I don't think that I'm particularly excited about one of them. It is the 5 spaces coming together that's important. So there's this really unique feature on the 3rd floor of the library, which is about the promotion and transmission of Indigenous knowledge, a place to highlight elders specifically, or at least traditional knowledge carriers. On the 2nd floor, there is an Institute of Indigenization, and that's really about Indigenous knowledge and looking forward. How do we innovate using KNEW knowledge, so new knowledge from the past? Then you go down to the 1st floor, and there's this really cool Learning Commons, which is a multi-purpose, multifunctional space that you can see lecture series taking place in, classes, just ongoing collaboration, perhaps even a wedding celebration. Directly opposite that is the courtyard, which will be opening on Monday. And then part of those 2 spaces, there's a space that is dedicated to truth and reconciliation. So that's about looking backwards. That's about looking at our history, exploring multi-generational trauma, institutional, historical oppression, all these different things that are a little bit different than innovative thinking. And so it's the ability to offer a suite of capital spaces, physical spaces, that will enable a real next level of both Indigenous education, the transmission and acquisition of traditional knowledge, and the exposure to Indigenous culture, literally for everyone.
I had read a piece where Cheryl Jensen said that with the Dare District, she didn't want to see Indigenous culture compartmentalized. She wanted to see it threaded throughout. I was wondering if you could talk about how you went to make that a fulfillment.
Absolutely. So when I was hired, one of the sentiments that was expressed to me during the hiring process was that Cheryl wanted and continues to want to embed Indigenous identity throughout the entire fabric of the organization. What that meant to me was we weren't just hanging art on the wall. We weren't just doing a land acknowledgement. Those things are important, those things are cool, they're trendy, but they're easy. What we are doing is much deeper than that. You'll see it on the floors, on the ceilings, on the walls, in our openings, in the programmatic function, in the capital structures, in the murals, in the art, literally any place that we think it makes sense or find an opportunity to embed Indigenous ways of knowing, we're doing that. And so we are ensuring that we are not segregating Indigenous knowledge or Indigenous identity, but we are making sure that we permeate the very fabric of the entire institution from every perspective that we can possibly take.
Ron, thank you so much for having us here today, for giving us a tour, and for taking the time to chat.
It's absolutely my pleasure.
Ron McLester is the Executive Director of Truth, Reconciliation, and Indigenization at Algonquin College.
Thank you.